Welcome to the Alien Probe Podcast. Today we'll be discussing the FEMA conspiracy. And I've got recently named Mopar Kevin because we're going to be bringing another Kevin on. So how's it going, Kevin?
Hey, how you doing, Doug? Thanks for having me back again. So our ratings are going to go through the roof now.
I know, yeah, I know. You know how to rock it. So what's new?
Same old stuff. You got a couple things to talk about before we jump into FEMA. So
we're going to talk.
With you?
Kevin and I are adopted. You're adopted too, right?
That's correct.
So we're both adopted. We're gonna tell. Bear with us. We're gonna tell a short story before we get into the FEMA situation. We're gonna talk about how we met. A friend of mine, Dr. Bill, who's on the show pretty regularly, did a dissertation or paper on the case of the wandering mom, and the mom is the same mother that Kevin and I have. I did a 23andMe because my second son, Johnny, said he didn't think I was related to him. Johnny. Well, it's kind of funny because Robert, my oldest son, and I can't mention Johnny without mentioning Robert, our producer, because every time I mention Johnny, you always mention your favorite son, Johnny. So Robert was from my first marriage. Yes, I've been married 3 times. So Johnny's like, says, he's like, I don't think we're related. You need to do a DNA test. So I did. So we did the test. This test ended up showing that he was indeed my son. And it also revealed that we all were, at least Johnny and I and Brandon and Robert, were 50% Ashkenazi Jewish.
Wow, I never heard of that before.
It also gave several second and third cousins. By the way, this is 23andMe that I did, and I reached out to a couple of the cousins. I didn't get any. Obviously, being adopted, I wanted to find out, well, who's my. I don't know who my real parent. I should mention I don't. We've talked about this before. I had an awesome upbringing by my dad. Little league coach, scoutmaster, taught me construction.
So what happened to you then?
I don't know. I went downhill after he left. Went to the military and then got really screwed up. At that point, Bill used the CBI, California Birth Index, and searched for males born on my birthday that gave 28 names, which is interesting. We knew, Bill and I grew up together in the Bay Area, and we personally knew 2 of the boys from a list. He researched the other names and determined that 22 were living or dead, and leaving 6 names as possible for my real birth name. The CBI only gives real birth names with the mother's surname and birth date. He suggested I do another DNA test on Ancestry. And that came up with a 25% DNA match with a guy named Ray Dillon, who turned out to be my half-brother, same mother, born in 1954. So this kind of kicked off found my mom. Ray informed me that I had another half-brother. And in fact, I was born in 59. I've got Kevin here, that we came in contact with each other, which formed, our relationship. I don't have a whole lot of contact with the rest of the gang. Then there's you're a 25% match, so same mom again. Mm-hmm. Becky, born in 1962, a 25% DNA match, same mom. Kevin and Becky were born in Alameda County, and then mom's maiden name was Elsa. Of the 6 possible births in Alameda County that could be me, one had the mother maiden name of Elsa. That's how I figured that part out. I think I don't know what the timing was of it. I don't know if we knew it was Elsa before or after we all connected. my birth name was Robert P. Walker, which is, an awesome birth name.
That is an awesome name. I think there should be a doctor in front of that.
I don't know. People at work say it should be a senator or something.
Oh,
Robert P. Walker will run for president, which gives us the surname of Walker, which, as it turns out later in the story, I don't know where he came up with that. I think that's a name that Kay probably gave upon my birth, but I don't know where the Walker name came from. California is very strict, as you know, adoption law. Were you able to get any the original birth certificate?
I do have my original birth certificate.
Which has your other name?
I can't remember. It's a microfiche, copy of a microfiche.
You don't have, so you had another name too?
I did.
How'd you get that?
Anyway, next subject.
California has very strict adoption laws that make it very difficult for adopted children to find out who their birth parents are. I actually don't need mine anymore. I know everything I need to know at this point. Doug's real mom was born Kay Elsom in Petersborough, Northamptonshire in England in 1926. With her mother's name was Bonham. Maiden name was Bonham.
Interesting.
John Bonham.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. We could be rich.
Little Led Zeppelin.
We could be rich.
Kay had two sisters. Sheila, born in 1928. And obviously, this isn't a UFO subject, but it is. We also our tagline is everything weird, and you can certainly say that this isn't a typical.
It's been an interesting journey, and it's still blossoming.
It's still blossoming. Kay had two sisters, Sheila, born in 1928, and Gwendolyn in 1930. Sheila was married in 1949, and Gwendolyn was married in 1951. So Kay immigrated. With that, Kay, our mother, immigrated to the U.S. I believe. She married Dwayne, who is in the military. And had two children. Lori, born in 1952, and then she passed in 2018 in Peabody, Massachusetts. Ray was born in 54, and he lives in Pennsylvania now. Kay and Dylan separated shortly after Ray was born. She probably moved to Alameda. That's what makes some sense. At this point, she got pregnant, gave birth to me in 59. And then I was adopted in May of 59 and then adopted by my father in July of 59. So 13 months after my birth, Kate gave birth to you. So we're 13 months apart.
Okay.
She's a busy girl.
Yes.
Yes. In 1960, Kay married Thomas in 61 in Alameda. In 62, Becky was born, our other sister. They're piling up now. And most recently, the reason we brought this up, I was contacted by yet another half-sister. I won't be using any names. We're just starting our relationship, and I don't want to really, I'm really excited because now I know who my father is. So she came up on and sent me a note. We came up as a 25% DNA match, which gives us the half brother and sister link. And so then it was paternal, so we knew that, and we've chatted back and forth on email. So we're just now, again, I don't want to mention what the name is or anything at this point. But so now I know who Dad is. So it kind of tied this journey together finally.
Right.
You're still in search of.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel very fortunate that this person reached out to me. I hate to say this person's kind of dry and weird, but I'm excited. I have the information. Hopefully we can, have, be able to be in contact with each other and meet hopefully one day.
Absolutely.
Looks like at this point, Kay married Leland in 1971, and they didn't have any kids, which is surprising. Maybe she's getting a little old.
I think she was worn out by then.
Yeah. So, Mr. Smith passed in 1991. At this point, it looks like Kay moved to Massachusetts, and she passed away in 1998.
So after Mr. Smith passed away, Kay, our mom, moved to Massachusetts to live with Lori, our half sister, and Lori took care of her, and that Lori was taking care of both Becky and Kay at the time. That's about all I know about that.
So we know, and then you knew Lori.
Yes, I met Lori through the research that our person did. We were able to actually going through the myriad maze that California makes you go through in order to, and at the time, most of the stuff was underground. And I'll certainly tell you how that process went when we're not on the air.
We're not.
But anyway, and through that we found Lori, and of course we found the death certificate on record of Kay passing away. I talked to Lori on a Tuesday, and she flew out on a Friday.
Yeah.
And we spent time together, and she had a myriad of pictures, and it was interesting to see that whole when you're adopted, to the audience, when you're adopted, you long to see people that look like you. I mean, your adopted family, and you whether you have a good life or a bad life, nobody really looks like you. So when you see a picture of someone that resembles you, as when Doug and I, as handsome as we are, we look very much alike, and you can tell when we're together certain features that are the same. So that means a lot to the folks that are adopted. So
yeah, it's now. How was your upbringing? How was your adoptive upbringing? I mean, it was a good life?
it was. Yeah, I was comfortable. I'll just say I was comfortable. I had, my parents were older. I don't know the circumstances of my adoption because that's very vague. I mean, certainly when you're young, they tell you that the angels dropped you into their lap and they chose you.
Did you know you were adopted? The whole.
So how I found out I was adopted was kind of a weird situation. I was 10 years old. I was in 5th grade, and they were just touching on talking about the characteristics of your mom and your dad. So your mom has brown hair, your dad has gray hair, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you write down all that information, blue eyes, and then you get to the bottom and you find out, what matches your characteristics. So I came home with this project and said, Mom, Dad, I need to write down the color of your hair because they're going to determine, what things that I got from you guys. And they said, okay, we've got something we need to tell you. And that's when it turned out that, and of course that's the story where, they said that they made it sound like they walked into this room and there was a bunch of babies and they said, we'll take him, and, and you were chosen, so you're special, but we all know that isn't exactly true. So what I found out was that from Lori, which is the sister that had passed away, she indicated that she had memories of me being dropped off at a house, and she described the house, which is actually the house that I remember when I was very young. And I wasn't officially adopted until I was 6 years old. And the circumstance behind that is that my dad was a Navy contractor. He was in the Navy. He was doing some research work for IBM. He had to go to Denver, and in order to take me out of state, because I was being fostered, I guess, by them, they had to initiate whatever paperwork was necessary to make me legal in theirs. That prompted the changing of a birth certificate. I have the weirdest looking birth certificate, and Doug, I'll show that to you sometime. How I had to do all this research is when I had to get a clearance at the airport. I had to get a lot of stuff cleared up and had to dig up a lot of stuff.
So you weren't officially adopted till 6?
Until I was 6 years old. Yeah.
You remember any?
Yeah. I remember the house. I remember, some of my earliest memories of the house that Lori described. The color of the house, the picket fence out front, that type of stuff. I do remember all of that, but other than that, I don't remember. I don't remember Lori. Now, here's the thing that's the kicker is why doesn't Lori remember you? And I don't know if she had it confused with you or me.
Yeah.
Because her story was that Kay would go out on the town and leave Lori with her brother, she would say, uh, having to take care of her brother. Now, there's 8 years difference, I think, is what we determined. At least for her and I, is 8 years different.
Yeah.
And she said that she'd have to go to the neighbors and ask for food because there wasn't any food in the house and stuff. So again, I don't know if she was remembering you or remembering me because I don't know where you fit into this picture.
Well, I was adopted.
Oh, right away.
It's within 6.
Oh, okay. So maybe
2 months.
Maybe she was remembering me. So then, after Kay gave me up for adoption, she told Lori never to mention me again, and that anybody that asked, "Hey, I thought you had a son," she said, "Oh, he died."
Is there any indication of why Kay operated like this?
You know, I don't.
Did Lori have any insight as to what?
It didn't seem to be money motivated
No.
like you're going after child. Because back then, child support didn't exist. You know, you didn't. You know, the guy you made a baby and the guy left. You're on your own. So I don't know, except for the fact that she just catted around it and wasn't cautious about who she slept with or doing anything to control getting pregnant. She got pregnant. She dealt with it. She either gave up the child for adoption or she kept him. It seems like she got rid of the boys and kept the girls. So yeah, it's a weird.
Maybe that was it. You know.
Yep.
Well, here's a picture of Dad, and I wish I looked this good. He's a handsome devil.
He is. I don't know what the hell happened.
I know.
Shit.
I didn't get that. I didn't get Dad's looks. He is a handsome individual.
Well, you know, I haven't seen a picture of you, a few years ago. So maybe you look.
I wasn't that good. I
But
guarantee.
He's a handsome.
I guarantee.
Well, they say that things skip a generation. So,
Yeah,
so you made some handsome sons. So.
Well, he was He was a decorated captain in the Navy, and you know, I wish I could have. Wish I could have met him. I'm sure it would have been complicated. Yeah, that would have been, so.
And we talked about that a little bit in our previous episode about John Teeter when we were talking about time travel. Said we want to go back in time to meet your family, and we kind of vacillate on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, with that, that's a story.
Yeah,
Mopar Kevin and I.
That's it.
And now you know how we or don't know and what we don't know. So let's talk about the FEMA conspiracy, Kevin. What do you got there?
Well, so one of the things that when Doug invites me up here to do these things that I always find that's super interesting is that he talks about the paranormal, the aliens, the Bigfoot, those type of conspiracies, and those are all fun to talk about. But what's really scary is ones that are closer to home, and one that I was always freaked out about is FEMA. And the thing about FEMA is, for those of you who don't know, that's the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and they take, on the surface, they're supposed to come during the times of crisis, a disaster like a hurricane or an earthquake, where there's mass displacement of people. They come in with food and water, medical, and trailers, places for you to live. But under the surface, and after 9/11, their scope of responsibility changed drastically. And when Doug invited me to come up here and say, pick a topic, that one has always been something that's freaked me out, both on a personal level and what I've researched online. The first idea of FEMA came out in 1803 when there was a disaster relief fund developed by the government. And they determined at that time, on the surface, they needed an agency that would oversee disasters. And that started in 1803. The conversation of that started in 1803. But FEMA didn't officially become an agency until 1979 when Jimmy Carter signed an executive order. And I want to touch a little bit about an executive order. Those of you that are in the know or not, the executive order is what the president signs by himself, obviously, and it's a directive that's issued to other agencies, other departments, to federal employees, and it's once signed, it's enacted within 30 days of whatever he signs. He doesn't have to go to Congress. He doesn't have to go to the Senate. He can make a decision about something with a stroke of a pen. Now, some of you out there might think, oh, well, that really doesn't mean much. Okay, well, I can tell you this. In 1942, the Japanese were interned, and these Japanese were American citizens, and they were interned by the stroke of the pen. An executive order required them to be scooped up and put into internment camps. So when you think that executive orders don't carry any weight, they do. And so, getting back to FEMA, when after 9/11, it was determined that they needed to have a little more control of us, society in general, and they wanted to be able to establish what would happen if we were literally attacked. And that's on the surface. They're saying if some company invaded us or attacked us, there'd be anarchy. So how can we, make things safe for everybody? And so they established, they decided that they were going to have FEMA become an actual department of Homeland Security that their director answers solely to the President of the United States and the Secretary of Defense. Again, FEMA is supposed to help us out in disasters, but they answer to the Secretary of Defense. Okay? Not housing, Secretary of Defense. That's the part
That's interesting.
that's really bad. So right after they established that they would answer to FEMA, they created what they called fusion centers. Have you heard of that before?
No.
Okay, well, fusion centers, there's 10 fusion centers established throughout the United States. It also corresponds with the 10 territories in the United States that during the time of crisis, if the president declares martial law, the nation is divided into 10 sections. Each section, divided by 10, has one governor. It's a governor that's appointed by the president that oversees their district. And each one of those districts today has a place called a fusion center. These fusion centers that are in operations as we speak gather intelligence from all law enforcement agencies and from the CIA and the FBI regarding any activities in that zone that are through communication, through any type of criminal activities. They're called fusion centers in this respect that they fuse all this information into one location that the LEOs, law enforcement agencies, can contact to see if there's. Now they'll tell you on the surface, and I just saw this yesterday. On the surface, they say yes, we do have fusion centers, but all we're doing is gathering information. So what information are they gathering? Well, they're gathering cell phone calls, and they're looking for buzzwords. They're looking for, they say, trends, not people, but trends. But just recently, it was established that they also looked at leaders of what they determined to be insurgents, like the head of, like some of the organizations that are protesting, and they'll look at them and consider what kind of a threat they are and establish this list. Now, if there's a time of crisis and we go into these 10 zones, inside each one of these zones is what they call a relocation center. These relocation centers, the smallest one is 11,000 acres.
Oh.
And they are, I've actually seen pictures of them. They look like jails. They're surrounded by double 20-foot fence with barbed wire fence pointing in. But the most freaky thing you'll see about those is that there's playgrounds in there. So they call them relocation centers. And then during time of crisis, they want to be able to have people come in there and keep them safe. Well, the barbed wire is there, but on the sign on one of the buildings it said if you aid anybody in escaping this facility, you can be arrested on a felony. And
so it's an internment center.
Yeah, so it's scary stuff.
Sounds like an internment center.
Just really scary stuff. So I'll give you an example of some things that I found. Just in 2010, the Marines were giving an order called Rex 84. Rex 84 was a directive for them to conduct military exercises in the United States to quell disorder. Now, Doug, I'm sure you know about posse comitatus, which is a Latin term for a section in the Constitution that says that we cannot use the military on our soil. The military cannot be used as a police force on our soil. But in the time of martial law, they can. And so Rex 84 is initiated, and it's in use today for the Marines to go and practice quelling civil disturbances. And those listeners right now that are listening right now, those of you out of the country, you may have seen in the news reports of all the civil unrest that we've had over the last year. And what amazed me is that in some communities, they want to get rid of the police departments altogether, and they're not doing anything to quell these disturbances. They just say, you know what, it's like in Seattle, they cordoned off a whole area saying this now belongs to us.
They went downtown and they destroyed the whole downtown area, and the police virtually just watched. And why is this Rex 84? Isn't that designed to?
The Rex 84 is designed, but only until the president declares martial law. That's the key. So once he determines martial law, then he can activate Rex 84, which he can activate the military to do. Now, I know the National Guard was called into some places in order to quell some of these disturbances, but in this case, I was amazed that nobody did anything. They just let them run amok. And they say even in Portland today, you can't even go downtown anymore. And Portland's a beautiful city. But anyway, so that's one of the things that's in place right now is Rex 84. And those of you that are listening, all this information I'm giving you, you can Google it. You Google it right now. I'm taking this information straight from the net, straight from Homeland Security. I'm showing Doug. This is Homeland Security label on this, that it's their own documentation. And of course, they're here for our protection, according to them. But one thing that I will say that'll freak you guys out, and because it did me, is that several executive orders were established during the Obama administration. And I'll go down just a short list. An executive order was signed by our President Obama called 10990, and it allows the government to take over all modes of transportation and control of highways and seaports. 10995 allows the government to seize and control the communications networks. 10997 allows the government to take over all electrical power, gas, petroleum fuels, and minerals. 10998 allows the government to seize all means of transportation, including your personal owned vehicles, of course, highways, seaports, and waterways. 10999 allows the government to take over all food resources. Now again, this is during the time of crisis. 1100 allows the government to mobilize civilians into work brigades under government supervision. That means you'll be forced to work. Again, all by a stroke of a pen. 11,001 allows the government to take over all health, education, and welfare functions. 11002 designates the Postmaster General to operate a national registration of all persons. 11003 allows the government to take over all airports, aircraft, including commercial aircraft. 11004 allows the Housing and Finance Authority to relocate communities, build new housing with public funds, designate areas to be abandoned, and establish new locations for any population. In other words, they can move you. 11005 allows the government to take over railroads, inland waterways, and public storage facilities. 11051 specifies the responsibility of the Office of Emergency Planning and gives authorization to put all executive orders into effect immediately in times of increased international tensions, an economy, or financial crisis. I can keep going down the list. There's a ton of these executive orders, and again, these were all signed with a pen. These have taken away your rights.
What do you think would happen if they enacted the majority or parts of these? What do you think the reaction of the people would be?
So you look at it in stages. In my opinion, if you had civil unrest, the first thing you'd want to do is control the population. Once you control the population, you'd have to have a place to relocate them. Hence the rehabilitation centers or whatever they want. Relocation centers, whatever they want to call them. If they're controlling just by these, that they can control what you drive, how you get there. One thing that's really freaky about these relocation centers is they always have a rail yard right next to them. So in other words, you can be taken by train.
Kind of like Nazi Germany.
Yeah, just like just like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just.
I think the people wouldn't react well to this type of. It just feels like there's already an undertone of just dissent against the government right now, and I just think this, and they could get wiped out if you try to go up against any of this. We get it, yeah, you get shot, yeah, but there's an underlying tone right now of just non-support of what the government does, and there's a lot of people with guns, a lot of people.
I
With
think
guns.
that I think that has a lot to do with them not just being able to railroad us, but just look at what happens over the last year. Through telling us to wear masks all the time, which is fine.
Yeah.
Having this pandemic, and then what's frustrating is that I understand during the time of the pandemic, they want you to wear masks. You couldn't go anywhere. Some people couldn't work, so they want to provide you money. They want to provide you where you can eat and that type of thing. Suspend you paying rent, so these people that have homes can't make their mortgage payments. But that's all fine. That's all well and good. That was made. A decision was made. But today they have the shots you can get. But there's still, you turn on the news, they go, well, you can get the shot, but now we have a new strain, so you still got to be worried. You could still die. Oh, now the kids are affected by it. So it's like this state of fear is just, it's scary. It's really scary. I think, and this is my personal opinion, is that this whole pandemic thing, somebody sat back and said, let's do something. Let's just try to force this on the people and see what happens. You can't go to work, which that's fine, but some people didn't get any money. But you can't go to work. You got to wear a mask all the time. That's mandated. Yeah. Okay. And let's sit back and see how the people push back. Well, you had some people push back, but for the majority of people would get on your tail for not wearing a mask. So I think that if the government were to come in and declare a national emergency, look what happened in Texas. I mean, they didn't have any power or anything.
Yeah, that was crazy.
It's just absolutely ridiculous what went on down there, and since they weren't on the national grid, they couldn't tap into anything to get power down there. So this FEMA thing just always just freaked me out. Anytime a government can take over something, what they perceive to be a threat, or create fusion centers where they have information that if I call you on the phone, Doug, and we have a conversation just like we are now, and it's something that's a buzzword that they're looking for, they tag onto us and they do a complete investigation without any type of warrant or anything. They know all about you, and some people will say, well, I got nothing to hide. Well, that's not the point. That isn't the point.
They'll find something. They could find something.
Yeah,
what we think is harmless.
Okay, and here's the thing: those of you that may or may not know this, Guantanamo Bay, not that I'm against that, but those people that are in there have never been officially charged. They're suspected terrorists, but they have not any due process at all. They've not been in court. They've not had any type of an arraignment. They're just there because they've been deemed a terrorist. So what would stop them from saying, "Oh, Doug,
you're a terrorist. You're a threat to security.
In your line of work, you deal with sensitive chemicals. Maybe there's a number of chemicals and mixed together can make something very serious. I go, oh, look at Doug, he bought all this stuff. Yeah. Oh my gosh, he could be a terrorist. Yeah. And put you and incarcerate you and keep you, because even anybody can be put in Guantanamo Bay if you're deemed to be a terrorist, a threat to the United States.
Is it still open? I thought they closed.
I thought they were talking about closing it, but I haven't heard officially that they have. Yeah, so, but all they're not, they might be closing the prison, but they're not. They're still going to do something here in the.
Yeah, I mean, they're just closing that. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen somewhere.
Yeah. So.
Wasn't that the prison where the guard had the leash in the collar around a prisoner's neck,
I'm
and
not
they were
sure.
walking it like a dog? That might have been that might have been over in Iraq or something.
One of the things that also came to light was FEMA has established that they may use urban gangs as auxiliary police to ensure order. Really?
Oh yes.
I read that.
What could possibly go wrong, Kevin?
I'm I'm just like,
we better lock
holy
ourselves in
cow.
our. Yeah, that might be a
You
problem.
got the Bloods and the Crips are going to be coming and knocking on your door, man. Anyway, so that just and when you invited me up here, that's what I needed to touch a little bit on. Those of you again that are listening to this, do your own research. This is stuff that I have taken off the net that I know about through my organizations that I've worked for, and not that I had any top security clearance or anything, but I did interact with the representatives of Homeland Security, and their power is absolute. And anytime you have that without any due process, an example of that too is what's going on at the border right now. I'm not for or against, so nobody write into the thing.
Nobody right
But,
into us.
Our previous president established some things to lock down the border, and that you had to wait in Mexico before coming in to apply for asylum or whatever. And now that's been lifted. And one of the things that I heard that made a lot of sense is that you don't eliminate a policy until you have another policy to put into place. There's no policy right now. They just opened the doors and said, "Come on in." And there's hundreds of thousands of people coming. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Immigration is great, but is this going more towards civil unrest?
Yeah. That's another thing that a lot of people are upset about. That it's. We don't want to get into the political.
No, I don't want to get into.
We don't want to get into the political.
Because everybody's very passionate about that, it's
very polarizing right now, and I don't really want to get a million emails about how I didn't think like a certain way.
But there's a very interesting talk show host that always says that the first steps to losing a country is losing your borders, language, and culture. And we've always been a melting pot, and we're actually nobody here is Native American.
Yeah, we all keep it somewhere else.
Except for the Native Americans who were here originally. They're the only true Americans. The rest of us are all in here. But the point I'm trying to get back to is anytime there's civil unrest, your government can come in and take over and tell you what needs to be done. And why would they spend all this money for all these internment camps that, as I said, the smallest one is 11,000 acres. There's one in each zone. There's 10 zones. Each zone has a governor that's appointed by the president, which means that he has no one to answer to but the president. There's no legislation. There's no Congress. There's no Senate. There's just somebody who's a dictator.
Is there buildings on these 11,000
Yes.
acres? Okay,
yes.
so it looks like barracks or something.
No, they're actually
apartments or.
They're actually buildings. They look like prisons.
Oh,
they're
really?
actually buildings, yeah. And
where is this?
So each zone, there's 10 zones in the United States, and you have to go online and look where these zones are, how they're drawn out, and then in each one is a relocation center. So I know the one that I've looked at numerous times is in Denver, and
is that the airport?
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. But the part that'll freak you out for those that you want to do the research on it is seeing a playground in the middle of a prison.
Yeah.
And there's no one there right now. So there's no one. They film it, and there's no one there. So it's not an actual prison that they keep prisoners in. It's there for some weird.
So they're
reason.
really kind of thinking they're going to need it. Well, we not necessarily need nuclear weapons when we have them, but are we going to need? They're thinking we're going to need this.
Well, under the guise of a national emergency, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's, people have always worried about another government coming in and attacking us. I don't think that's going to happen because, whether or not you like it or not, mutual assured destruction, is still assured that, they lob at us, we're going to lob at them. Yeah. So that's a moot point. We're all going to be croaking then. But I think it's more like, let's say they decide tomorrow that we're not going to get any more gas. That's just the way it is. We're not driving anymore.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to create civil unrest right then and there. So what do you do when you have civil unrest? Well, we got to quiet these crowds down. Well, how do we quiet these crowds down? You come to them, you tell them, okay, you stay in your home, or we're going to put you in this nice little facility over here with the slides and the swings for the kiddies. So, and this is stuff that I've read. There's a ton of stuff out there that I'm not privy to.
Yeah.
So
what else you got on that? So it sounds pretty frightening. I don't know. But, things about the government are, they do have a tendency to, okay.
there's some people are saying that they're trying to do a population control. In April of 2014, an individual named Snopes posted a document that was immediately taken down, according to what I've read, that FEMA was marking houses by political affiliation to round people up to put in these camps, um, and trying to establish who is a threat. So if there is any type of upheaval, that they know that, well, John Jones over here, and that's a made up name, so sorry, John Jones. John Smith, John Doe, he's a political activist where we need to round him up and put him into a facility. So that's very, very real, Doug. And I know when I leave here, you're going to probably do some reading on this because
definitely.
But the theory about how they're going to incorporate people into the camps, it has been started since the first Bush talked about a new world order, and anytime that they tried to initiate anything, they knew they were going to get resistance. But what made it go jump leaps and bounds was 9/11. 9/11, the Patriot Act just took so many of our rights away. I mean, just so many. Whether or not you believe in that, you think it's a good thing or a bad thing, it took all of your rights, well, not all your rights, but a majority of your rights away. A good example of that is the no-fly list. Nobody knows how you get on the no-fly list, but the main thing is, how do you get off the no-fly list? If you've got a name that's associated with a terrorist organization, but it's just your surname that you were given when you lived here all your life, and you go down to take a flight and they say you can't go, there's no avenue for you to go and say, that's not me, and they verify, oh, you're right, Charlie, it's not you. You're off the list. You're on the list, that's it. Now think about that. You can never fly again.
They can't get off the list.
You can't get off the list. People have hired attorneys to see what and take it to court. No, because first of all, it's not an official document. It's just a no-fly list.
Yeah.
It's not like a warrant for your arrest, or you lost a lawsuit and it's a judgment against you. It's just somebody determined that John Doe can't fly. And so, and working in an environment that I worked in before, I was called many times to the ticket counters for somebody that popped up on the no-fly list, and again, judging by what they've told us, didn't appear to have any ties to anything. Of course, again, if you're going to do something terrorize, you would get a normal looking guy. You wouldn't look at the stereotypical person.
Right.
But they
so you'd have to go to the counter, they run a rate because
they would. So once they're there, if they protested that, we'd have to put a call into the feds and have them come in and talk to them. And I sat many times in a room listening to them have a conversation with these people. And sometimes it was a family, and it was the wife and the kids could fly, but the husband couldn't. I'm not saying that all men are bad. Don't write in everything. I'm just saying in that particular sense,
all men are bad.
That particular sense, they weren't allowed to fly. And you have the, I guess you take a train anywhere you wanted to go, unless you want to go to Hawaii. I guess you have to take a rowboat over there, because. But that's the power of your government, and it just.
I've heard of that, but I thought you could get off of it. I didn't know it was like permanent. You're permanently on this.
Okay, where would you start though? Think about that.
Yeah,
if you went down to the airport right now, you couldn't fly. Where would you start?
I don't know.
There's no. Call this 800 number and we can talk to you.
Yeah.
You go to the white phone and call the 800 number and we can talk about this.
I'm gonna look it up.
How
do I get off the no-fly list?
What happens if you got somebody's in the know that doesn't like you? It's your name, your social security number. Say and when I interacted with some of these people, they look shocked. I mean, and I don't know. Again, they could be acting. I mean, that's but they didn't have any clue of why they were on that list, and a lot of times it's because their name, I mean, I have a common name. And if you Google my last name, there's a zillion people out there. When we bought our house, I had to sign a form saying that this is my true and correct name, not an alias.
Yeah.
Which I would pick a really cool name like
Dirt Diggler.
Zeke Rogers or something,
Dirt Diggler.
Chucky Farley, but not what I ended up with. But anyway, that's what I have on FEMA.
Well, next week I think not next week. The next time we get together, I think we're going to talk about the Pan Am Flight 800.
Yes.
We won't get into it too deeply, but it's it was back in 1996. It took off, and about 12 minutes after takeoff, it exploded and crashed in the Atlantic, killing all 230 passengers. And the NTSB was on the scene and everything, and they were really, the NTSB, the Navy was there. The Navy got in pretty short order, and they decided that, they sent the divers out. They got, they reconstructed the plane, and I was looking at pictures, and they used it as a training tool for people involved in the NTSB, but obviously none of the 230 passengers were they found them all. They did say that they gathered up all the bodies, and they stated that it was a what did you say? It was a
the end report that I read indicated that there's a fuel transfer circuit in the belly. Those of you that understand aviation, the airplane has several fuel tanks, not just one. There isn't like your car has one gas tank. There's several. There's one on this particular aircraft was 747-400. It has wing tanks, belly tanks, a tank in the tail. So during flight, they transfer fuel, whether it's automatic or whether it's pilot initiated. So it was indicated that there was a switch somewhere in the belly tank that sparked. Because the tank was empty, the fumes ignited, and of course you know the rest. Here's the thing: the plane just took off, so we wouldn't have empty fuel tanks. I doubt very seriously it was going to be a trans-Atlantic flight, so I think that they would probably fill the tanks up. The second thing is that I find it very hard to believe that as Boeing, as successful as they are, and no other 747 has been afflicted by this, that they would put something in the fuel tank of any electricity, of anything that would spark and cause this.
One of the stories I read was that they use oxygen or something to fill in the void, and then it ignited the oxygen, which ignites. So there was a spark or something.
I don't know if you would.
I don't know if it's oxygen.
I don't know if you'd want to introduce kerosene, the fumes of kerosene, along with pure oxygen.
Well, then they said, they changed that, and then they're like, based on the results, they said then they changed it to nitrogen because it's inert, I guess. But that being said, I don't really believe the story because they got over 100 eyewitnesses said that they saw something like they saw a flame shooting from the ground or the ocean, not really the ground, the ocean going up, which indicates might be a missile or two. They said more than one.
Well, the thing is about the fuel tanks, it would make more sense to just vent to the atmosphere. If you want to eliminate pressure in the tank, the fumes, you could go to a certain level, just vent to the. But getting back to your witnesses, there was not just a couple people, there was a lot of people that saw, and it was documented that the military was doing maneuvers, some type of a war game or maneuvers out there. That's why they were on scene so quickly.
Were they? But they weren't. They stated that they weren't in the area.
Well, the missile. A missile can go a long way.
Yeah, but they said it was. They said it was
straight up.
Yeah, they said it was like right underneath where the plane had been.
Well, didn't we shoot down a plane over the Med?
Yeah, we did. I have a relative that. Yeah, we did.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was
that was human error.
Yeah, but still. Well, if this turned out to be a missile, I would hope it's human error and not intentional.
Yeah, I have a note here that says the USS Seawolf, it was a submarine, was in the area,
Okay.
but it doesn't. It does not have allegedly missile capability. That my source states. So it's. If somebody saw, I mean, they're just discounting. They said, "Well, what's the flames that were going up from the ground up to the aircraft?"
I thought there was somebody who took a picture.
I don't know if that.
I don't know if it was a plane coming down or.
They said it was what the NTSB said. Where the flame was an actual. That was they were seeing something that the plane was producing. That the plane had produced. That was actually after. To your point, it was kind of after. The incident happened, and they saw these flames. But I mean, I would like to say there was like 95 people that said of the witnesses.
It was a lot of people
that said
beach.
We saw before the plane came down 2 streaking flames going up toward the aircraft itself, and it's who knows. But they didn't, and there was residue that indicated propulsion from something similar to a missile that they discovered on it when they pulled the aircraft fuselage up, and then they said that that was explained away by saying that was there because we planted it there because we were doing we were doing some training with canines to smell the stuff. So,
oh my God!
It's all about I was surprised in the Gulf when we admitted that we actually.
Well, now you have to understand in the Gulf the difference between that is other governments were investigating, so you're best to come clean.
Yeah, because it's going to get discovered.
But here it was just strictly U.S. investigations.
Yeah.
So. As I said, if there's a design flaw in the 747, that was the only aircraft in the entire life. Now, obviously, afterwards you would make changes, but prior to that, in that aircraft, there was never an incident of that happening. Now, I mean, you can go either way, but why would the witnesses say they saw something streak? Somebody said, I read one of the discounts that it was the sun. Reflecting off of the ocean, and I'm like, it was in the evening.
Night.
Yeah, I said it was in the evening, and the sun doesn't set in the east. So
it's kind of like
it could be in the morning, but it wasn't in the morning. It was in the evening.
Well, it's one of those things like with the UFOs where they say, "Oh, they were looking at Venus. It was a UFO, and it wasn't Venus. It was something very shiny." So,
we'll have to do a little more play.
We have a lot more information on the Flight 800 incident. That's just kind of a teaser as to what's going to be coming up in a few weeks.
That's only because he got bored with my FEMA stuff, but that's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
Well, we've talked about all we can talk about on FEMA in our life, our personal life, of course.
That's it.
So we're now on YouTube. We're on YouTube now, right?
Oh no,
we're on YouTube. We're for everybody. I know there's been some comments about, and there's no video. There's going to be video coming up.
You mean I have to wear
You're
clothes
going to have to
now?
wear clothes.
Oh,
you can't come in here and just wear a crazy t-shirt. I want you in a suit and tie. But yeah, we're on YouTube, so we're going to wrap it up. Thank you for listening to the Alien Probe podcast.
Well, thanks for having me again.
Well, Kevin, we appreciate it. We welcome your comments and questions to alienprobepodcast@gmail.com. Visit us on Facebook at alienprobe.net. And also make sure you check us out on YouTube. Check out Robert. We're on Twitter at alienprobepod. Thanks to our senior producer, Robert Anthony. Be sure you check out our new logo. Robert finally got the logo that he always wanted. So, Robert, congratulations. I know you didn't like the silly little cartoon alien that in front of the microphone. We got one. So, Robert upgraded us. So, we're going to be getting some t-shirts out there pretty soon. Get you a t-shirt, Kevin.
Oh, that'd be nice.
And thanks for listening. See you next time.